So without more delay, I pass the floor to my director, Michael Hailu, director of CTA, who came as well from the Netherlands, where CTA actually headquarters are based, Wageningen. I think you all know that. We just have a small office here in Brussels. And he came with a colleague who sits completely at the other end of the room, Giacomo Rambaldi, who is a senior expert on ICT for agriculture, actually. And we also have some of my colleagues on publications. I think Muriel Van Drek is here, Vincent Vautrel from Value Chains and Central Africa Coordinator, and a few others. Michael, thank you very much for coming from Holland this morning.
Thank you very much, Solina. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Normally we have these briefings in the morning, and we're really wondering if we'd have enough people coming for this session this afternoon. So we're pleasantly surprised that the room is almost full. We're also very grateful to GIZ and BMZ for joining us, to put together this briefing. It's absolutely critical that we look at a broader rural development context to see how the work that we do from our perspective in agriculture and really advancing the whole agenda of agricultural transformation fits into this broader agenda of rural development. Of course, to be able to achieve success in agricultural transformation, it's absolutely critical that the whole environment of rural-urban linkages are working effectively, and several studies, including IFAD's 60-country study, has demonstrated that to make transformation inclusive, it's absolutely critical that we have the right policy interventions, and in that context, the rural-urban linkages, the quality and the strength of those linkages are critical. You'll hear a lot today in terms of the importance of these small towns and cities, with 500,000 or less inhabitants, how they're critical in providing off-farm employment and other investment opportunities. But I think the key thing is how to bring together public and private sector actors, to make this successful. So it's really critical that the public sector puts the right infrastructure investments, capacity building, and the right policy incentives so that the private sector can be very actively engaged in this process. And I think we have some very interesting examples, for example, in Ethiopia, where they're investing quite substantial amount of resources in developing integrated agro-industry parks, where the facilities will be provided with major investment from government, but to attract both local and international agribusiness investors, to come in and support, especially youth employment and value addition, technology transfer, and other kinds of services. So there are some interesting examples that we could look into and see how this works. Also, we have to also learn from other experiences outside of Africa. For example, in Latin America, where there is very strong experience in territorial, integrated territorial development. So I think those lessons should also be shared, within the context of Africa. We don't have any particular cases coming from Latin America and other regions, but in our website resources will be sharing some of that experience, which I think has a lot of interesting lessons for Africa. So CTA, well, this is, again, an important area for us, especially how are you going to keep young people, in rural areas and around small towns where there are job opportunities, especially in the agricultural sector, because many of them who don't want to migrate to cities because, the service and the facilities are not very attractive in rural areas. So in terms of especially providing ICT-based services and job opportunities in the ICT sector. This is an area we have been very actively working on. Some of my colleagues who are here today, we have been helping young people to develop ICT-based businesses. Some of them, very talented programmers who actually come to, live in cities, have no idea of rural areas, but through, through competitions and other ways, we have tried to get them interested in focusing on agricultural challenges and developing some applications which have actually become successful businesses. And they have had some interesting investments from private sector, and they have been able to develop those businesses. So I think the challenge is how do we make these city, towns and cities attractive for young people from rural areas to seek employment and to look for livelihood in those areas. So I think there are quite interesting lessons that we'd be happy to share, and we very much look forward to the discussions this afternoon to see how we are going to scale up some of those lessons in terms of agribusiness development, especially with support from ICT. So I don't want to take too much of your time. Of course, there are very interesting presentations ahead waiting for us. So I thank you again for joining us, and I hope this not only helps us to share experiences, but also to build networks and continue the exchange in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. I did forget as well to tell you that it's always difficult to choose a date that doesn't clash with something in Brussels. But apart that it was very busy last week, it will be very busy this week, because actually in the same room we will have the ACP Joint Parliamentary Assembly, so the members of parliament from Africa, Caribbean, Pacific, and at the end of the week from the EU and the ACP as well. So in that context, I'm very pleased that we have some of the members of the Joint Parliamentary Assembly here. I see Seychelles, for example, former ambassador as well. Thank you for being with us, and a few others. So that was also, we wanted beyond the policymakers we usually have in Brussels to welcome those so important members of parliament who normally are in their countries as well. I do have to apologize for Ambassador of Kenya, who might join us a bit later, but I don't think he's still in the room, and Ambassador of Senegal will be coming for the second part. So without a delay, I will, if you don't mind, Michael, to continue, because I have to run around actually. But the speakers do know that they have about 10 or a bit more, but not too much more, a presentation. We will present one after the other, and then we open for comments and, and questions and input and so on. And you can present, of course, en français, Monsieur Denis, or in English, and because we have interpretation for all the presentations. And if you have a PowerPoint, perhaps it's better you come here to operate it from the computer, but as you wish. Michael, thank you very much for stepping in there.
Okay, well, basically my job is quite easy. So you have all the biodata of each of the speakers in the folder, so I don't think we should spend too much time introducing the speakers. So our first panel will be talking about potential of closer rural-urban linkages for rural transformation and job creation. So we have 4 speakers this session.